Coach Lee Hopkins. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I want to welcome you to the Engaged Employee Podcast. Our mission is to emphasize the relationship between the employee and the workplace with the goal of enhancing engagement levels to create a more productive and satisfying work environment. While many organizations strive to create a more engaging atmosphere, they often miss the mark by forcing connection with big team building events like axe throwing or escape rooms. Those activities only leave employees with a short-lived sense of belonging. Organizations may also try smaller and more suffocating events like happy hours or group birthday celebrations that their employees feel obligated to attend. As a social connections and business culture coach, I found that to create a stable, engaged, and productive workforce, there needs to be a shift in focus from mandatory fun and manufactured connection towards building trust and authentic conversation. Join me and a guest as we dive into social wellness strategies for the individual employee, techniques for developing interpersonal relationships with coworkers, and even some approaches for leaders to enrich the overall organizational culture. The Engaged Employee Podcast starts now. Hello, and welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast. My name is Coach Lee, and my guest today is Stacey Chazin. Stacey is a dynamic leadership development coach and proud introvert. She is rewriting the narrative on introversion. Having grappled with societal expectations that favored extraversion, Stacey underwent a remarkable transformation. Instead of conforming to societal pressures, she embraced her introverted qualities, turning them into powerful assets that allowed her to thrive professionally and personally. Now, as a fervent advocate for introverts, Stacey draws on her extensive corporate and nonprofit experience, a master's in organizational development and leadership, and a certification in the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. She's a Myers-Briggs Type Indicator practitioner to empower introverts, guiding them towards self-acceptance, fulfillment, and success in the workplace and beyond. Our conversation today will be focused on individual self-care strategies for the employees. Stacey, welcome to the Engaged Employee Podcast.
Thanks, Coach Lee. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad to have you as an introvert. I'm very excited to hear your story about how you tapped into the powers of becoming an introvert or tapped into your introversion powers and made something fantastic happen. So I want to know, can you tell us, how did you get started in this?
Oh, I'm excited to share this. And I actually didn't know you were an introvert. You didn't mention that before, so that's wonderful to know. And I'm
Surprise.
hoping that you'll get something out of today's conversation as well. So, as you shared, I'm a coach for introverted professionals. I help my clients who work in a whole wide range of professional areas at different levels of leadership and at different phases in their career understand their innate strengths as introverts. And I got to this place because I myself, it might not surprise you, I too am an introvert. And I spent decades really feeling out of step in my career and believing in my heart that I was not cut out to be a leader because of my introversion. So what did I do? I started pretending to be an introvert. I started going to big conferences and feeling like I needed to collect as many business cards as possible at every cocktail hour, to network quantity over quality. I felt like I needed to come up with brilliant creative ideas on the spot in meetings and dominate the airwaves like the extroverts did. And not surprisingly, when we pretend to be something we're not, we fail miserably, as I did.
Yes, absolutely.
And I had this eye-opening experience one year when I was at one of these large conferences that really changed my life. I was asked by one of the conference organizers if I would take part in a flash mob that they were planning up on stage after the lunch break. And I felt like, that's what someone who's a leader, someone who's comfortable with others, someone who wants to get out there and raise her visibility would do. And so
Mm-hmm.
of course I said yes. And it was they were going to start dancing up on the stage. I am a terrible dancer, and I do not like, as many introverts, I don't like when people are looking at me. But I thought, no, I have to do this. And he asked me to be one of the first few people up there.
Oh, wow. All by yourself.
Well, there were a few of us up there, but
Mm.
I did it. And I spent I think the next hour hiding out in the ladies' room
Oh,
because
wow.
it had really, it had just drained me. I was so physically, mentally, emotionally uncomfortable by the whole experience that I had to remove myself from the whole conference and just really recover. And I thought to myself, what are you doing?
Mhm.
You're missing out now on other conference content. You're missing out on being with other people, and no good is going to come if you keep trying to pretend to be something you're not. Um, and I that was the day I decided to stop pretending I was an extrovert and to lean into the best of who I am as an introvert.
Yes. So let me ask you here, because probably I could have started the conversation off by defining what introversion is. I think
Yeah,
some people have different meanings to what introversion is. So just
yeah.
so we can clear this up, what is introversion to you?
Great question. And I think along with that is there are so many myths about what introversion means, right? Lots of people think the stereotypical introvert is shy, is unfriendly, doesn't like to be with other people, just likes to work
Hmm.
by themselves. But really, when you're an introvert, or in Myers-Briggs speak, we say you have a preference for introversion. It really speaks to how you get your energy from the world. So, or how you tend to get your energy from the world. So, as an introvert, I and many others, where our energy is fueled by times when we work with or engage with just a few people and not a big group. When we have time to process deeply and thoughtfully, to go deep into content, to to process a question and information before we come back and share an idea. That's the way that we
Right.
work at our best, and that we're most productive, most satisfied, most really when we're at our best. Whereas extroverts, the opposite, they tend to get their energy from engaging with many people at once, uh, thinking out loud, so to speak. It's a
Okay.
very different energy flow. So, in a nutshell, that's what it means to be introverted.
Okay, I'm glad we're level set on that. I definitely love to do all those things. I enjoy spending a lot of time by myself and deep thinking. So we're on the same page when it comes to
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yes. So then, as far as helping introverts who are in that space or people who prefer introversion, how do you help them? Who are your clients and how do you help them with that?
great question. So, my clients are anyone who identifies as an introvert or leans in that direction. You could be working in any field, any professional field, at any level, with any tenure within your organization. You could be early in your career, in the middle, toward the end, or whatnot. And the way I help folks is I really help them to identify what their true innate strengths and gifts are as introverts. So we start off the process by having them, they do a Myers-Briggs assessment, which helps to identify not just whether they're introverted or extroverted, but other ways that they interact with the world. And that process provides a foundation for saying, here's the way you're wired. Here, the findings of your Myers-Briggs assessment will suggest ways that you're going to show up when you're at your best, the types of environments, the support you need, the type of work you might be doing. And with that as a foundation, I walk them through a coaching framework that's called appreciative coaching, which I love because it is entirely based on the positive. What that means is we start off by I start off by guiding my coachees to identify the best of who they are, what we call their positive core. And with that positive core in mind, dreaming up, envisioning what their ideal future is in some aspect of their career or work life. Um, I then guide them to design a plan for how they're going to achieve the dream they want to reach, all again, all based in their positive core and the best of who they are. And then ultimately figuring out how can you put this plan into place and live this new dream, this new future for yourself that's entirely based on what your strengths are as an introvert. So you're no longer pretending to be something you're not, or in situations where you're feeling like your introversion is a liability rather than really the asset that it is.
Yes, thinking about yourself in a positive way
Yep,
is, I think, the way to have the most positive impact.
yep, yep.
So you help people understand that their introversion is not something that needs to be dismissed or downplayed, actually upplayed. And when they
Yes.
discover that for themselves, that there are a whole new set of skills and things that they can do or realize they weren't able to do before with that. And I understand that you have something that helps them with that, some productivity hacks that can help them be more successful as an introvert. Can you share a
Yep.
little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I've studied and learned and worked with my coaching clients in this space, one of the things that's come up a number of times is that introverts, not surprisingly, have a harder time being productive when they're in an office than they are when they're working from home.
Mm.
And even when they are working from home, there are typical workplace expectations and schedules and demands that are not aligned with their introversion. So most workplaces are actually designed with the extrovert in mind, right? We're
Oh,
expected
yeah.
to be on, to go from meeting to meeting, to engage with others, to have ideas quickly, and that does not work for introverts. So but you still have to, many of us still have to go into an office, or even if you're engaging on Zoom, you're still dealing with these expectations. So I created a guide, daily productivity hacks for introverts, that are really tips they can follow to work at their best, produce their best work with less stress, so that their energy isn't being drained. A couple of ways they can do that. One is to establish a morning routine that helps you to get grounded in your energy. It
Hmm.
might be taking a walk, it might be meditating, practicing yoga, saying some mantra for your day. That's really just going to get you grounded and start your day from a place of serenity, ideally. Another thing I suggest is to schedule some downtime if you can. Back-to-back meetings. I know it's not always possible, but if you're able to put some blocks on your calendar, even if it's 15-minute blocks, so that you're not in that back-to-back-to-back schedule, which really is going to drain you as an introvert. I strongly encourage my clients to do that. Another thing that I practice, that I encourage and is in this guide, is to embrace your prime time, which means think about each day, reflect at the end of the day. At one point in my day, am I at my freshest? Am I doing my best work? When am I doing my deepest thinking? So for me, I'm a morning person.
Mm.
So when I have a big task, whether it's writing a blog, creating a curriculum, something that's going to take a lot of my brain power or creativity, I block time to do that in the morning, because I
Oh,
know I'm going to be at my best in producing those types of things. In the afternoon, I schedule administrative work, or I respond to emails that maybe take a little less brain power for me to do. So recognizing from day to day, how does your how does the flow of your energy over the course of a day, what does that look like typically? And then how can you align your work to go along with those blocks of time in a way that's going to help you be at your best when it really matters?
wow, that is very powerful and very mindful.
Yeah.
You know where you know when you do your best work and you tap into that, making sure that you're not exhausted by trying to do something that takes a lot of brain power at the end of the day. That's not going to be helpful. And taking those little breaks, I think those are very powerful too, between meetings, just to ground yourself, just
Yep.
to ground yourself, just to reconnect with yourself. So, Stacy, you shared with us some amazing things, like amazing tips for us. I'd be curious to know, and my audience wants to know too, where can they find you? What do you have going on? Do you have any courses, books, or anything like that that you'd like to tell us
Yes.
about?
Thanks for asking, Coach Lee. Yes, I have a bunch of things going on. So folks can find me at ifactorleadership.com. And if you go to that website, you'll find a number of things. One, you'll be able to download my free daily productivity guide that I just mentioned. I also have a resource there that will, it's a conference survival guide for introverts. So if you're going to a big conference, what are some things that you can do to protect your energy, so that you're not drained, and you're not feeling like you need to engage with hundreds of people nonstop? How can you get the most out of the conference? Including how can you network in a way that's more aligned with who you are as an introvert? Think quality over quantity for sure. I'm also launching an on demand course where you can sign up to learn about ways that you can communicate more powerfully, pr- protect yourself from introvert burnout, and powerfully ask for your next promotion or raise as an introvert. That course is going to be available right around the time this podcast comes out, and it's called The Introvert's Leadership Formula. unlock your influence, impact, and income. And then you can also find out about my one-on-one coaching program. I have a 6-month program where I will apply the appreciative coaching framework that I talked about earlier to help you as an introvert identify who you are at your best, what your positive core is, and figure out how you can design a plan to achieve a professional future that lets you use those gifts in the best possible way.
Wow, you have so much happening. There were so many resources. I'm so glad that I was able to bring you onto this podcast to share this with the world, because we are looking for that information. How can we protect ourselves, our energy rather, in spaces where it seems like we have to fit in and people are demanding so much of it?
Absolutely.
Stacey, it was a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Coach Lee.
Another insightful episode of the Engaged Employee Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the world of employee engagement, leadership, and workplace dynamics. The Engaged Employee Podcast is brought to you by the Patterns of Possibility, where we help people make more meaningful relationships in both their personal and professional life. Before we wrap up, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our incredible guests and, of course, our loyal listeners. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you valuable content each week. If you found today's discussion thought-provoking and want to learn more about how we can help you or your organization make more meaningful relationships, go to patternsofpossibility.com and book a friendly conversation with me. Or you can email me your questions at patternsofpossibility@gmail.com. Stay connected with us and engage with fellow listeners by following the Patterns of Possibility on LinkedIn. You can also catch us on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you prefer the audio version, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your support means the world to us, and by subscribing, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of our journey to create workplaces where passion meets productivity. Until next time, I'm Coach Lee. Stay engaged, stay inspired.